presentation is on electronic waste. This is a global environment and health issue. I'm Sophia.
I'm Elijah Garrett.
I'm Bartosz Żukowski.
I'm Jackson Ross.
And I'm Kristen Samuels.
For an overview of this topic, I'm going to go over what e-waste is. So this is discarded electronic and IT devices that are destined for resale, reuse, and recycle. The importance of this topic is that when these materials are absorbed by water and soil, the toxic substance and minerals used can harm people's health and the environment when it omits pollution into the air, and it can also cause health effects. Some examples are in Guoyu, China. This is a small town, and residents have respiratory, neurological, and digestive problems. 80% of the kids are also at high risk of lead poisoning as soon as they, grow up. And then this town is the largest place in the world for electronic waste recycling sites. So you can tell there is a correlation between electronic waste, these recycling sites, and having health issues.
So leading into the updates and developments of this case, in 2009, Dell and Goodwill partnered to reduce e-waste by allowing people to drop off used computer equipment at more than 2,000 Goodwill locations. And in these locations, the staff were supposed to determine whether the items would be recycled, trashed, or reused. However, following a Basel Action Network study, it was discovered that 1/3 of the 200 tracked items labeled for recycling were actually exported to China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Thailand. And as a result, this reveals the need for stronger oversight and policies when it comes to e-waste management if Dell and Goodwill actually want to improve on a larger scale.
Now, shifting on to the ethical dilemmas. Innovation speed versus e-waste. Tech companies release new devices constantly, pushing consumers to upgrade fast. This helps profits and technology moving forward, but it also creates a lot of e-waste. Exporting e-waste to poor countries. Many wealthy countries send their e-waste to poor countries. It creates jobs, but the work often exposes people to toxic chemicals with little to no protection at all. Now, moving on to the ethical questions. The first one, who should be responsible for the safety, handling, and recycling of old electronics? Manufacturers, governments, or consumers? This question matters because e-waste affects everybody, and deciding who holds the most responsibility is pretty key to solving the problem. The second question is ethical. Is it ethical for rich countries to send their e-waste to poor countries where people could be harmed by recycling it? It highlights the issue of fairness and whether it's right to place danger on communities that have less protections. For the third question, should tech companies slow down how often they release new devices if it leads to more electronic waste? This asks if it's whether constant innovation is worth the environmental costs.
So our group's perspective on the dilemma is that with Goodwill and Dell, they have strong potentials and good intentions for trying to help with the waste, but there are certain things that could be changed to make it better. Electronic waste has become one of the fastest growing global pollution and public health challenges. As technology production and consumption rises, millions of devices are being discarded into landfills or being shipped overseas to countries without proper management of those toxic materials. And this creates an ethical dilemma because the environmental and health consequences, such as exposure to hazardous chemicals, are being pushed into lower communities and developing nations. We believe that reducing global waste is not just a recycling issue, but responsibility that requires countries to benefit. Responsibility that requires transparency and fairness. It's not ethical for wealthy countries to benefit from technology while shifting the aftermath into vulnerable populations. Programs aimed at recycling are valuable, but they must be monitored to ensure that the materials are handled safely and not contributing to any hidden environmental harm. Our group supports sustainability efforts, but only when they include responsible disposal and protection for both people and the planet. True progress means creating solutions that don't just transfer those risks, but instead share responsibility and prioritize global health and environmental justice.
We had 3 questions from the case. Firstly, what specific actions should Dell and Goodwill take to strengthen and reconnect the program? How can Dell monitor the large number of participants, including employees and business partners, at over 2,000 locations to ensure that program functions as intended? So I believe that if they improve their standardization across all the locations, it would greatly benefit. They needed to create a more unified and detailed operations manual. That way everyone knew a little more better where everything needed to go. They also needed to acquire a more in-depth training. A lot of times people aren't trained properly, and so when little things go wrong, they don't even realize, especially when they're sorting and going through a lot of data. Secondly, why do you think it is that the United States, the largest generation of e-waste worldwide, is the only industrialized nation that has not yet ratified the Basel Convention? I don't really think they've really done that because they would really cut into all of the money. It's usually what it comes down to. Profitability is really high, and so in order to do that, it would cost a lot. They would really have to cut corners on a lot of things, and they'd really have to tighten up, and so it would take a lot of profit and a lot of time for them to do that, and it just hasn't gotten onto there yet. Lastly, did you learn of any proposed or pending legislation? And there's actually a lot. They've been getting to a decent amount. The top 3 is the SEERA, the Secure E-Waste Export and Recycling Act, which prohibits and limits the export and re-exports of all e-waste, especially when it comes to computers, TVs, and electronics like your phone. The Stewardess Act and the Recycling Composing, the RCAA, aims to improve the recycling infrastructures nationwide, especially for undeserved and rural areas. It gives them a lot more grants and locations for building and getting more materials. The RIA as well is a really important one, but they typically just manage the two, and so they're more behind the scenes. And that is all for our questions from the case.
And this is our works cited. So that is it for our presentation.